So can you share any stories about how you position your brand for that power shift moment for you?
Yeah, so again, I didn't know that I was acting out the technique, but I was building influence. And I shared in the book, and I've said on some interviews, one of the first ways that I did it was, growing up in Hollis, Queens, there's obviously a lot of rappers that came from Hollis, Queens. However, there were probably like 10 or 15 rappers that came from there, but when very little other rappers existed, really, maybe you would have some of the Bronx. So these guys, I mean, LL was like massive. He was huge, like in '86.
Yeah, he was.
Think about how big LL and Run DMC were in '86. And I knew that I couldn't get to L to have him wear my clothes. So what did I do? I said, well, how am I going to build influence with L? I can have the people in the neighborhood say that I'm a good guy, but no, that's cool. But what does that do for him? Yeah. But I realized all the big guys in the neighborhood. Is this my water?
Yes.
I realized all the big guys in the neighborhood didn't have many clothing options. They weren't cool like you with no socks on.
Thank you.
So I realized that they only had Rochester Big and Tall to go to. They wear a big white shirt or a big black shirt, or they didn't have enough money for custom clothing, but they didn't have anything stylish. So I had enough money for 50 shirts, and I embroidered 50 5Xs and 6Xs. I gave it to all these guys because I realized that the cool kids and or the rapper would wear it once and throw it away or give it to somebody else because they wanted to be seen in it again. But these guys would wear it 10 times every single month. These guys ended up being in front of the red ropes and in front of being the bodyguards and being all these people that were around the rappers. And the rappers started to get used to my stuff. But I was giving it to rappers, guys around LL, as well as guys around this guy named Beast, who was around Ralph McGuinness. And Ralph McGuinness, we all remember, Video Music Box, if you're not from New York.
Yep, I remember that.
A legend. I don't care any rapper out today that is anywhere from 40 to 55. They owe Ralph a big, a big thank you, because without him, they probably would not have been known. MTV wasn't playing music for African Americans, right? And he's still boots on the ground in the city, doing what he has to do. But this guy, Beast, started being around Ralph, and Ralph started saying, what is this? What is the stuff you're always wearing? And I got people accustomed to the brand that weren't even wearing it, meaning all the rappers and artists, because they started to see the logo. So I knew I wouldn't be able to meet Ralph in New York, because Ralph was like a god in New York. So I just found out when Ralph was going to do the Teddy Riley weekend down in Virginia, and my friends and I took a train and a bus, and it took us about, I don't know how long, 8 hours to get down there, just so I can hopefully meet Ralph one day and say, hey Ralph, just ask Beast about my stuff. And Ralph asked Beast, he slowly put me on Video Music Box, and the entire city would know me. But that plan right there took a year and a half alone, just for that one element of the plan. And I had to travel all the way to Virginia, because just like I'm saying, the people in this room are not the masses, they're the key people. I knew that I could have a better chance at meeting Ralph. And I stood outside of one of the shows that night for 4 hours to just get the chance to meet Ralph and talk to him. And when I talked to him, I just said to him, here's who I am, here's what I'm doing. Let me give you a card. If you ever are thinking about it, or you just want more clothing for your staff, just let me know. How can I be of service? Ralph would call me about 3 months later. And that was slowly starting my chain, and I've done that many times in my life. It wasn't yo man, you need to wear this and I got a problem. I need to make money because I quit Red Lobster. You don't care about that. You have your own damn problem. Why would you care what I need to do? And I just think that people need to understand how they're building their reputations, or how they're hurting themselves. If you talk to me and I go online and I see that you're not somebody that I value. Maybe your husband's running around with a Confederate flag shirt. I think that you think like him, right? Or maybe you're sending out all these social media posts and all this great content, but you're not in the social media department at your company, and you're sending out all that crap out from 9 to 5. Well, when the hell are you working? So it's all about building influence, and influence doesn't happen the moment that you talk to me and shake my hand. Influence happens of what you built prior to that, to get to that moment, to meet me or anybody else.
So influence isn't followers. It's not your follower count.
No, not at all.
Right.
Not at all.
So a lot of our community here, shout out to y'all. So a lot of our community here are entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, folks who aspire or also inspired. What can you say to those out there who might have a crutch kind of in their way or a barrier saying like, hey, like I can't stop working because X? Or can you give any examples of how you overcame, for example, your story about your $300,000 order that you couldn't fulfill?
Yeah.
Can you share that story with the audience?
Yeah, so the years of work, so when I first started Fubu, I closed it 3 times from 89 to 92 because I ran out of capital. But I always would run out of only $1,000, $2,000, and I was able to come back from that. I didn't bet the entire farm. When I finally get $300,000 in orders, I got $300,000 in orders when I went to Vegas, and I stayed in a small little hotel room and had people come over to the hotel for the Magic Trade Show, which is our clothing industry show. I wrote $300,000 in orders. I go home, I don't have the money now. I got to make the clothes. I go to the banks. I got to turn down my 27 banks. My mother comes on to me and says, "You know, you've been working on this house as long as I have. Why don't we take most of the money we have in this house, take it out. You'll manufacture the clothes and deliver it, and put the money back in. This is all we have." Right? Right, absolutely. Shout out to Mom. So, I have no idea how she got $100,000 loan on the house because the house was worth only $75. So today I haven't asked her what she did for the rest of the money. So now I had to really sacrifice. So what was the sacrifice? Well, I'm 26 years old now, and I didn't go to college. I was the kid who thought I was too cool to go to college, and because I was on the tours with the rappers, like dancing and hanging out with them. I was like, I'll take that 1 year off, and that 1 year became forever. And then I'm 25 years old. I now have these orders. I'm still a waiter in Red Lobster. All those kids I laughed at that decided to further their education are coming back, and I'm serving them shrimp, and I got tartar sauce in my apron, and I'm feeling like an asshole. And I said to myself, what do I value and what I want to do? And I said, if I didn't put the time in college before, I got to put the time in now, because there's no way to escape the time you got to put in. So I didn't quit my day job. I worked at Red Lobster. I turned my house into a factory. It took us 2 weeks to sell and burn all the furniture we could. My mother moved out. I rented all the rooms, the 3 or 4 rooms I had upstairs. I rented them to people for $25 a week for strangers. I slept in sleeping bags next to the sewing machines. I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
So you started Airbnb.
I did. For sure. Yeah, man. I would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I would answer the answer machines from orders that were left the day before. I would sew hats and call people back, and then I would drive around the city dropping them off to my key 8 stores I had. I knew I couldn't expand to other stores. Then I'd go to Red Lobster, I'd get the lunch shift. I work from 12 to about 10. I'd get back home at 12, and then I would do the same sewing hats up until 3 in the morning. And I'll start it all over again. I do it 7 days a week for 5 years.
Shit.
And
Damn.
the reason I did that, thank you. Trust me, it hurt.
Damn.
The reason I did that is I couldn't quit my day job. All the people were lying to me saying, quit your day job. But if I left Red Lobster, I was making $30,000 a year, which is not a lot. But it added up to $150,000 over the 5 years. I had medical. I was taking all the food home, so I was reducing my food costs. And I would use sometimes the staff to come help me sell things at flea markets or whatever the case is, and they were like ambassadors because we were a bunch of waiters, and everybody just loved being part of a movement. So when people would see me putting in hard work like that, I would have other partners come into Fubu, and there's about 10 people who were Fubu was a big 05. It stood for 5 partners. We ended up with 4 because we went through 10 to that 5th partner. They never stuck around, right? So the other ones built influence with me. So we negotiated deals, and we're still here. So that's a quick skinny on that aspect of the story and why I did it. I just realized I had the fuel to do it at that time. I didn't have any kids. I didn't have any other responsibilities, and I had the energy to be home, to only go to sleep for 3 hours a night.
Now, did you see yourself fast forward on a show like Shark Tank? And by the way, you're representing millions of black people on that show.
Facts. Yes.
And
Yeah,
obviously,
yes.
thank you for being a pioneer for young kids and generations, or even people. It doesn't matter the age you inspire. Like, look, I came from these streets of Hollis, Queens. I had an idea. You didn't have a rich mom, and you've had a number of hurdles, and nobody came and said, "Hey, like, I see you're struggling, kid. me buy all
He
these
doing
shirts
it now,
from you.
right?
Nobody did that for you.
Doing
right?
it
No,
now.
it's quite
right?
the opposite. You know, where I grew up, you know, like almost where everybody else grew up. You know, '86 came around and crack devastated my neighborhood, and the entrepreneurs and the people we had to look up to were Supreme Team, the drug dealers, and they were the entrepreneurs we thought were going. They were the only ones we saw. We didn't see anybody on TV that looked like us. I mean, the only entrepreneur we saw on TV didn't look like he was doing that great. I don't think Fred G. Sanford, the junk man, looked like he was doing that amazing, right? But you aspire to see these guys with the 98s and the Jettas and the fat robes and the leather jackets. You know, you aspire to see that. And I would walk into little clubs, you know, in Queens and rising to the top and be playing, and all these cats would be coming in, and you would see all this drug money going around. And most of my friends went over to that side because we didn't think that there was anything else. Because we didn't see the heroes, the hardworking people in the neighborhood were getting their kids ready for school at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning. They were going to their place of business. They were working until 10 o'clock at night. They were places like this, trying to further their education, be around like-minded people. We didn't see them. And they also were conscious about how they had to handle their money. We didn't see them drive around in Mercedes-Benzes because they knew that 401ks may be more important, or investing in their real estate or their house or starting their business. We didn't get to see the glamorous life of that. So I was being drawn over to there because most of my friends went to there. And Hype Williams, see, I grew up with Hype Williams and Herb Gotti, and Hype ended up making a movie about our best friend called Belly. So I grew up with all these kids.
Oh, wow.
And I had to fight not doing it. And back in the days in '89 when I first started, when these guys are like, yo, D, we're going up to 1018, or we're going to do this or go to that, and I'm like, well, I got this new strawberry pattern. I'm gonna stay home and make some hats.
Okay.
At that time, they thought I was gay, and I have no issue with anybody's sexual preference.
Wow.
But at that time, remember, we thought designers were all gay, right? Or gay Italians, you know what I mean? And they laughed at me. So I actually lost a reputation. My friends really stopped hanging with me because, and also I wouldn't go on them when they were taking those runs, and I knew they were dirty in the car or stuff like that. So it was harder on me from a social aspect as well for a long period of time. But I knew I had to do something to get out of there because if I looked at the numbers, I remember thinking about what a drug dealer makes. If a drug dealer makes just an average of a corner guy, if he makes $100,000 a year, you know, but if out of 10 years, 4 years he's serving time and he's looking over his back the other 6 years he's out and he has to pay for legal fees and he doesn't have any medical, he's making the same amount of money as a kid at McDonald's, right? So I was just doing my numbers and saying, the number doesn't work and I'm not going to jail because I'm really, really cute. So, you know, I had to shift the power. It's funny. I can't talk like this in other cities and states because maybe Houston or Atlanta, but because they don't know our lives. You know what I mean? They don't know what we've been through. You know what I mean?
So, for you had a great partner in your household, your mom. Is she one of the five?
She's number one.
Okay, there you go. I just had to make sure. I remember you were going through a trial, and you were running back and forth throughout your business, and you couldn't get over the hump. And your mom said, "Hey, like, I need $2,000."
Yeah. So what happened is so I didn't have financial intelligence, and the $100,000 that we got from the bank. I burned through the money not knowing how money works. I was paying for raw goods 90 days ahead of time. It's a cash flow issue like all businesses have. I was paying for staff and utilities and shipping and my accounts receivables. The stores wouldn't pay me for 30, 60, 90 days. But again, I was going with what I thought was the norm. I didn't ask them for COD because I didn't want them to turn me down. Knowing now that the brand was super hot, I could have asked them for COD. Right? I could have gotten advance on what we call floating the paper on the raw goods. So then I would only have to worry about my staff utilities and other things like that. And so I turn around and I got $500 left in the bank and I'm 3 months later on the mortgage and they're gonna take the house. And I felt at that point that I disappointed my mother. I felt that I put everything that she had at risk and I was just an idiot. Like, what did I do wrong? And then there was no recovering from it. And then she comes and says, I have an idea. Give me $2,000. I go back to Red Lobster. I work.
You didn't ask any questions. That's mommy.
That's mom.
Okay.
Well, when I come back with the $2,000, I said, "What's this idea?" And she's like, I'm gonna take an ad in the newspaper for you. And I said, that's probably the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I told her she cannot do it. I remember telling her, Mom, you can't do this and don't do it. I just worked for that $2,000 and I forbid you to do it. So you know what happens when you forbid a black woman to do something. So the ad was in the paper the next day. And the ad was $1 million in orders, need financing. Again, my mother was on Kickstarter 25, 30 years ago, right?
So you started
But it's a business, I guess.
So 30 people call that ad.
Something I don't know.
30 of them were
Just clap.
Pookie, rah-rah, Laquita, you know what I mean?
Yo, y'all need money?
Damn. What's shit still recording? Shit.
But 3 of them were real. One was Samsung's textile division. And they were also trying to figure out how to get into the market, and they didn't know how to get into the market. So there was a strategic relationship that could happen. So again, as the negotiation went, Samsung told me that they would manufacture and distribute my clothes the same way that Arista will do that for a Diddy or somebody else. A lot of people had said, oh, Samsung owns your company? No, Samsung owns, I own my company. That's the manufacturing and distribution side. They can't ever take my company from me or hire or fire me. And the deal was that I had to sell $5 million worth of clothes in 3 years to keep the manufacturing and distribution deal, because if they set up the supply chain, how are they going to get their money back? So the negotiation was this. Listen, I don't want you to sell my clothes to the bottom barrel stores, because the kids in the hip hop world, they walk into a store and see the jeans at 80 there, and they go across the street and it's in Burlington Coat Factory for $10. Why would they ever pay 80? The Samsung said, no problem. But here's what we're gonna do. Just be careful on the designs and the line you build, because we'll let you build anything you want. Any line you want. You wanna put purple sleeves on them, you want one sleeve shorter than the next one, it's up to you, no problem. But if it doesn't sell in 90 days, I can unload these clothes at any place I want. What did that do? That made me more responsible on what I was going to order and buy and manufacture, and that gave them a feeling of trust that their downside would only be about this amount, because they knew that they could offload it to Burlington and things like that. You see, when you do a negotiation, it's always what's in the best interest of the other party.
Go.
What was my best interest? I want to design my clothes.
I'm recording.
Tell me what I could or could not do, because this is my company. What was their best interest?
I'll leave
This is
a
all
code
my
here.
money. How am I going to make sure that my money's secured? And deals like that happen all the time, whether you're talking to your significant other or whether you're talking to your coworker. It's always what's in the best interest for both parties. And I wouldn't sell $5 million worth of clothes in 3 years. I would sell $30 million.
Just show them your
in 3
bracelet.
months.
Show them the bracelet.
But remember that 3 months.
I'm recording. Don't worry, I got the
It
whole
took me
thing.
8
Don't worry,
years
I
to
got
get
the
to
whole
that 3
thing.
months. Be very careful about that thought process.
I just want to make sure
So the combination of your influence and your negotiations, move that deal, put that deal in place with Samsung, and then fast forward, you get the 30 million in 3 months. Where does that take your deal?
840.
Where does that take your brand?
Well, the deal was the structure was very
I'm gonna go here.
Right, so my deal would, and I can tell you bad, I can tell you the downside. I don't want everything to sound like, beautiful and this and that. The downside is, it would take me to $350 million a year annually over the course of 6 years or 7 years.
18 minutes.
Period of time. We'd build a brand.
18 minutes.
Samsung obviously manufacture and distribute everything. But here's the flip side. When the stores were coming to us, we were hot as shit.
No, it's the 18
So we would
minutes.
say,
I'm not recording.
Nah,
hey, first of all, we're only designing a line 4 times a year. Spring, summer, fall, and winter. When the ladies industry designed a line 10 times a year, but we said we're too cool 4 times a year. Also, all the stores, you have to
my
pay
pocket
a
show would be
pre-pack,
dope.
meaning a box of 12
Have them
jeans.
on pocket show would be
Meaning you're
dope.
gonna have to take in the box whatever the number is, 232s, 234s, 236, all up to 42, whatever the case
My show
is.
actually growing,
And some of the stores are
shockingly
like,
enough.
What?
Show growing, shockingly enough.
Your podcast?
take the box.
It is growing. As
Or
long as you keep
we'll
going,
open
it's
up an
gonna
account right
grow.
next door.
Yeah, man.
I'm scared
And we're only gonna
because,
come
like,
out
I'm
online 4 times a year.
scared.
Sometimes
Like
they'll be like,
I
okay,
said,
but the
when
real
I
fast
don't
kids come
feel
in my
right,
store.
I don't feel like the message is
first
gonna
month,
come through.
if
You know
for the next 3 months, the same shit. They don't come back to my store.
But
They
you
just
can't
like,
let
yo,
that
we'll
stop
see
you
you
though. Like, just
Like,
do it,
they
just
can
do
survive
it.
That's
So they can
true.
get get some new stuff.
I believe you. Look,
What would happen over that
you
course
can't
of
let that
time?
stop you though. You got this.
The stores that were
Keep going,
forced to
exactly.
take in the pre-packs
You're right.
Keep
would
going.
now sell out of their 32s and 34s. They would now
so
keep
scared.
ordering the pre-packs,
I be
but they
scared too.
would have
Trust me, I
an
know.
overabundance
Yeah, I
of
do.
You feel like you're
30s,
scared of
40s, and
anything.
42s.
Trust me, I be scared a
After a
lot.
while,
I be scared a
they
lot.
put them all on sale right in the corner.
I don't show
The
it,
kid's
but
not looking
I
at
be
the
scared a
style. All
lot.
he's looking at is the name brand, and this pan over here that just came in
Yeah,
is $70
I
for the
don't tell
$10.
nobody though, but yeah, I be scared.
I don't want to mess
You
with the
can't
brand
tell
anymore.
nobody nothing. It's like you
Then all
can't
of a
trust
sudden we have this
nobody.
money coming in, we have these goods coming in for the
You're
next summer or
popular,
whatever the
great.
case is that
You
aren't
got it.
selling
I know
this
you
and
can go
that.
far.
My
Just
You
inventory
told me you was like,
grows to be
you got
$50
that
million
voice for radio.
You
I
do
was
got
like,
voice for
yeah.
radio. You do got voice for radio.
Right?
Come on,
I'm paying real
my
estate
interview,
for
you
the
killed
warehouse
it.
of
Like,
all this
come on.
inventory. You know, we have a
Don't
million.
just tell me, just tell me.
No, y'all still have to do good. I mean, my packet had to get like 100 views in each episode, but it was like almost on 70, so that's good.
Then when I have to offer,
Yeah, so
what if I made the G for 12?
you good.
Burlington Coat Factory, well,
Come
no,
on,
I-
so do
it's
it,
cool,
do
you
it.
made
Like,
$12,
if
Do it.
we got a gift,
$2.50.
like, don't waste
How about that?
it. You
Don't
know?
worry, so you can't
The
die with
$50
the
million
gift.
in
Exactly,
inventory
exactly.
ends up
Exactly.
eating away at the profit over the last couple of years, and then it also corrodes the brand because other brands will come out and say, we will open a pre-pack for you, no problem. We're going to give you 10 deliveries because all the things that we
I'm
would
gonna
not
have
do.
to like it later at the
We also never
recording
create a
done, but I
bottom
got
line
you.
that was, we would only like, your pants can only be a 70. We don't sell basic jeans. So when we all grew up, if you were wearing a blank shirt, nobody really bothered you. But at that time when labels were so hot, you had to have some identity on your product and you didn't want to wear counterfeit. So what happened? A brand called South Pole comes in and makes jeans for
South Pole.
$30.
Okay.
Oh, I
So
remember
now
South
the
Pole.
kid is like,
Remember all the brands
food was
you
70, if I
come
can't
out?
afford it, I'll get
I
South
do.
Pole. Food was 70, by the way, it's
I
like
used to
discount
wear
over
all
here.
that. All the brands too, but I used to wear it.
A Nietzsche.
You already
Yeah,
in
all-
fashion,
all
where
that.
the cycle is that the kid is wearing the
Fubu is
product
the
all during
rock.
high school.
For real.
They just want to have a new brand during college because they're a bigger boy or bigger girl, and that was 4 years. I got 4 years worth of Fubu. Now I want to look at.
Oh yeah, he did football, right? Yeah, he did
That's,
football.
you're
Oh,
not
shit.
paying attention. You're not
That
paying
was how
attention.
the
I
brand
forgot,
started
he
to
did,
decline
he did this.
egotistical ways of not nurturing the relationship and not doing in the negotiation what was in the best interest of the other party. So it can happen in various different ways.
Thanks for getting vulnerable. So I had a pair South Pole jeans.
I don't know. He'd be vulnerable. I'm done.
Was by us. So,
It's Sharice.
by the way, did you take
She's
offense to how I movie when you kind of
so
looked at
defensive.
I told you, yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Talk to her. It's like you can't. When she's sober, when she's so cool. Then she's like, I don't want you putting him before me. What are you talking about?
I told you you compare me to him. I don't know what I do.
It's like I just was saying that y'all talk.
so when
y'all
did
have
you
more in
personally
common than what y'all.
feel
Exactly.
like
I mean, I
That
get
doesn't mean
power
that
has
y'all the
shifted
same
in your
person.
favor?
exactly. I get it. I get it. I get it. What you mean. I
She
get
don't
it.
get it.
We're on to something.
You
What's
can't.
wrong with her?
She can't tell her nothing. Nah, that always been her.
She drink.
Especially when you drink. In general, you can't tell her nothing when she's sober too. But when she drink, it
But
shows.
see, I haven't really dealt with her on the sober level.
Yeah.
Cause she's like, we should be more closer, right? But we only met up when it was
Yeah,
club time,
yeah, that's true,
time
yeah.
to drink and turn the fuck up. So it's like, I don't know her on a personal level, but I know that when on a personal level, she's cool.
Yeah, she's very cool. Yeah, she's very cool in person level.
Let me listen to her.
Yeah. I just like,
I
you know,
didn't feel like
one
I
day we
arrived
gonna do an event where no drinking involved at all, and
Me and
When I
you,
was about 30,
Yeah.
when we go out to eat.
yeah, me, you, and her, and then see what happened.
after the
happens,
first
right?
conversation,
Without the drinking.
Yeah, after drinking, yeah, exactly.
I had a fear that people
We're
would
not
think I got
drinking.
struck by
That's
lightning
right, we're not
or
drinking.
one
No
bite of
drinking.
apple.
Yeah, no drinking.
I have a
gonna
sufficient
see,
amount of money,
because
but
we
I know
always
now
wind up
a
drinking.
lot of these things that I should do. And we would then bring our licensed Ted Baker, and we failed at that because we didn't want to open retail. I would then invest in a
It's
company
crazy
like Heather,
because
another one married to the mom.
I did drink a lot tonight, but I feel good though. I feel like I'm good.
It's the Henny.
It's the Henny,
It's
yeah.
the Henny. It's not like if we had regular vodka, we would be fine.
Yeah.
We would be sober by now. But Henny is like,
Imagine an event like this, you're not able to get drunk at an event like this. Dang.
well, you so can be concentrate.
You know, if you get too confident with yourself, you know, early on, and you think you've arrived,
That's smart. That's smart, actually.
We're in the middle of
Because they know that if people get drunk, they can kick them out.
who is going to be able to rise to the top, and the ones who are too comfortable and maybe don't know how to communicate on social media, don't know who their audience is,
I hate the bathroom now.
depending on
Yeah, I'm
radio,
recording.
don't know how to work virtually.
Shit.
A lot of those people are going to fall by the wayside, you know, over this next course of the year.
But 8:40, 8:47.
So before we're going to open the floor for questions in a moment.
Oh, okay, it's about to be done.
So I just wanted to turn to you and say, you know, ask the question, you know, if you never made, if you not made it because you chose it, if you were never on Shark Tank, where would Damon be today?
I want to know that too, actually.
I would, I'd still be like the other guys that I respect to work with. I'd still be a form of Gary Vee.
Oh, sorry, I did that.
Tony Robbins, and George Fraser.
Any more drinks?
I'd still be somewhere like that.
No.
You know, I don't necessarily ever have to work again, but I love what I
I'm
do.
done.
I think that I would
done.
be really providing as much content as I could possibly. You know, I think that because I come from a world of inventory. I come from a world of I gotta pay $6 for this and sell it for 12, whatever it is. The world of content, the inventory is just right here. I can move around. I can be as fluid as I want, but I just have to have the best inventory here to share with other people. I think that's what I've been doing that.
All right, so we're going to open the floor for
I'm
questions.
shocked
Do we
that
have a
all of it
microphone?
recorded now, son.
What?
All right,
I'm shocked the whole thing recorded.
any questions, hands?
30 minutes?
And you can just step right up, actually. Oh, you want to handle it? All right. I'm going to say this. Let's be as kind and as respectful as possible. At any moment that we feel that you're not being respectful, we will ask you to put the mic down.
Well, nothing with personal agenda. Just please ask the questions that everybody in this crowd can learn from.
You guys should come and line up on the sides of either side. Just come right up.
We have this gentleman right here.
And if you don't have to, well, you have a mic stand there. I would say pull the mic stand up, and so people don't have to necessarily touch it. You want
Funny.
I just feel like some people just want to go up there and make themselves known.
Of course, yeah. She already know that,
It's all about
Shree.
benefiting themselves.
Shree, of course, Shree. You know that. She already know that, Ray.
Who wanted my brand?
You already know that, Ray. That's not so
I want to
private.
give you another perspective.
I'm gonna see the email. I know
A lot
we're
of
gonna
people
go there.
see any patents and all these other.
I know the girl, the first girl you met earlier. She liked to talk. I could tell. I could tell.
Let me talk and say a question so I can hear my social media real quick.
$17,000 to $100,000, depending on
Let me
how many you
put this
in.
back.
People
Good
find ways
now.
to get around it. My trademark of Fubo win cost me $2,500.
I didn't even know he made Fubu until like.
Litigation. So a lot of
Man,
times
man, people online for it.
think about things.
Go ahead.
Go
You
ahead.
got it.
Go ahead. I
Just
know you.
mention my book too.
Thank you for all. You were saying around 89,
I
you
could
ran
do that,
into
but I'm
issues
not
funding inventory. If that happened again in 2020, what would you do now? If you were a fledgling brand now in 2020 trying to fund market that?
Yeah,
How do
good
you
question.
build,
Excellent question.
How do you build like your platform?
You know what? I ran out of
What?
money because
Then
I just.
what? You gonna sit down?
I ran out of money because I didn't know what I was doing, but I only ran out of $500, $1,000. It wasn't big inventory. What I was doing is I wasn't looking at my numbers. So from a financial intelligence side, you know, listen, I have meetings with my president of my company often, and we're saying, and the reality is, business is pretty easy. You have to increase sales and reduce costs. But what I would do now is I probably would, with today's environment, I can get pre-orders from people and say, listen, every month, here are the 3 styles that we're putting out, put your orders in by the 10th. You'll get them on the 20th or 25th, and I can use their money to hopefully get the product out to them, because I met a couple of people that do that. I can have a subscription model, right? Or if I was in retail, I would have to look at my 80-20, who's my 20% of retail creating 80% of the business. Also, what I started to learn back then is this is why it's important not to go and get funding immediately and go out and try to put your brand out. I started to realize what worked for me and my brand, my 20%. I used to, like all designers, I wanted to put out 10 color shirts, so I put out 10 colors of shirts. But in fashion, 65% of the sales are black, 20% are white, and the mix is in between. What did I do? I cut out 8 colors. I had 10 logos, only 2 of my logos were really working well. So I cut out 8 logos. I had 5 sizes when I was really small. At that time, guys only wanted 2Xs. Nobody wanted to say they were wearing a small shirt. Even if it was a small shirt, I put 2X in it. So I started getting narrow and deep on my product, and that created that when it went to the store, I sold it, it would have a higher sell-through rate. And so that's what I would have done. If I would have ran out of the money then, I'd have found ways to fund it with other people's money. I would have also found ways to do collaborations and use other people's marketing. That's OPM, right? OPM could be other people's marketing, manpower, mind power, manufacturing, whatever the case is. I would home in a little smaller on my line. I would cut out all the fat, and I would just keep trying to sell at a very small scale. And when I can show these numbers, it can only be duplicated when you decide that you want to grow and take in funding, but you've already had the model in place on who buys it, what color they buy, what design they buy, where they pay, they're ready to pay $39.99, but they won't pay $40.99. You get really narrow and deep, and you give me the information. So that's why on Shark Tank, if you don't know your customer, we ask for sales.
Before I get to the question, so like, you were one of the original founders of driving a taxi / van in Queens.
I
started Uber too.
I was a Queens van plan driver. When Archer just opened up, I used to do the route Archer, Guy Road, Rosedale, all the way to Rockaway Beach 116. And because I was a young hood guy, nobody would work 1 in the morning, but I had my man, my man Al, who they made the movie Belly about, would be next to me. He'd have the ratchet on him just in case, and we just, we just make sure that we were safe.
And then the second part was the marketing. The marketing at night used to paint up like the streets just for like advertising.
What about the marketing?
Like used to paint like the streets.
The street gates.
Yeah. So to me, the way that I see it is, it's all
Freedom.
out of the
I
box.
just like it's like a
So my question is,
the dolphins leaving.
out of the box thing.
The guy in
What do you do to like put yourself in that environment so you can like put yourself?
So what he's talking about is street gates. I would paint.
It could be
I'll
creative,
go to the
but
stores who
no
pull down the storm gates, and I would say, can I paint your gate a beautiful white and put a beautiful white sign of a local company, so that kids would know that you're supporting a local company and they would want to support you in return. And I didn't care what you were selling. You were selling Chinese food. It didn't matter to me. But I put authorized food dealer on all these gates, and I would paint like 300 of these gates through New York and New Jersey. But because those gates are pulled down during morning rush hour, sometimes even rush hour, that was $3 million worth of advertising. It was like these bus stops. But also, it's just having common sense in business. A lot of times, I think we get too inundated with everybody telling us why it works or it can't work, or how it's supposed to be done. And we just sometimes don't say, no, let me do it another way. When we first had our first $1 million to advertise, MTV was charging
people online for this.
$6,000 for 30 seconds.
Q&A, so you bugging.
BET was charging $500 for 30 seconds.
What do you say?
Because Nielsen rating
What I said.
said these are X amount of people watching BET and X amount of people watching MTV.
Q&A, come on, man.
So we had a choice, and everybody would laugh at us if we go to BET. Now,
This is the type of
Uber
event
was
it
never
is.
designed for a color. It was always designed for a culture,
stuff
but
like that
the
before.
origin of it is from music made and created by African Americans. And that's what powered it. But I was never going to be disrespectful to other people who loved our culture. I would dress Beastie Boys, I would dress MC Serge. I don't care as long as you are cool. I would dress Eminem if he was out at that time, right? So I didn't want to just advertise on BT and MTV, but I just didn't want to also just advertise on MTV. But what did I say to myself? I said, no, you remember when Donnie Simpson was on? Remember that? I remember saying to myself, there's no way in the world that 5 million people watching MTV and only 500,000 are watching BET. Because you know what? Most of my homies got bootleg cable. Right? And it's 5 people living in that apartment. And they don't have no other place to watch African American programming besides Ralph McDaniels at 3 o'clock when they come home from school.
That's true. And they had no
I'm gonna
cable.
go with the BET one.
They had no cable.
And,
Up and
and so
down.
for $500, I bought so many ads, I damn near owned the network, but it would blow the brand up. It was just common sense, right? So sometimes, don't let people come up with numbers and all that other stuff. You know your brand, you know your customer, and you know how to get them.
Exactly.
You know their needs and their desires. So that's why the gates and out-of-the-box thinking, it's really just sitting around and thinking of the obvious. It's right in your face, but everybody else is telling you it's got to be done another way.
What steps do you take to make sure that you don't abuse your own power and influence? And for context, my name is Chris. I grew up as an undocumented immigrant in Hollis, Queens.
Oh, yep.
You did what?
You're right, sure. You
I
try
grew
to
up
get
as
a
an
favor out there,
undocumented
son.
immigrant in Hollis, Queens. So I wanted to kind of thank you for
Try to get those
being
me
an
out there.
inspiration for someone who doesn't look like
Yeah, I
you.
would have the same
But
thing.
definitely know how you grew up. But I was wondering.
Had to, you put your brand out there,
Thank you
son.
so much.
Yeah, you
Go
did.
out there. Put your brand out there. Put your podcast. Go. Get out there.
I got that there.
Abusing
I
power.
just-
First of all,
I
I'm
do
very
feel.
proud of you.
I got nothing
And I'm
to
proud
ask
of
you.
that. I
Sure.
really
Why
do.
not?
I got nothing to
Proud
ask.
also
Your
because,
podcast out there.
again, I'm
Get out.
a thinker.
But still, but like,
Many of my staff have known me for years.
I'm not because sure you're good. I think I need a bathroom now, so you probably have to use it.
Exactly.
My
Pay the
brother
whole year.
when I was, I think, 3. My other partner
Yeah,
was
I've been
10,
back.
11. So the minute I get fired, they be like,
Shit.
you wasn't shitting on yourself. And, you wasn't fly then. So, having real people around you helps you. But understanding where you are on the spectrum, right? When I walk in the rooms, sometimes I'm walking in the rooms with some of the wealthiest people on the planet. And they're walking in the room, they're looking like they rolled out of bed in their pajamas. When I'm around wealthy people, super wealthy people, I notice the rich people talk
be
about how
poor
much money
over here.
they spend. And the super wealthy talk about how much money they gave away. So it's about a different mentality of walking in a room and learning from the people that are all around. You can learn from the janitor, you can learn all the way from the CEO. I think that's what keeps me, not trying to abuse, my power. So that's all I can say. And have I abused my powers one time or another, or 10 times? Probably coming up. I mean, I don't remember. I'm 51 now, but
Okay.
but I've managed to hopefully try to take control of it.
We have time for 3 more.
3 more people.
I'm glad I didn't get up.
Bringing your presence for all of us here and giving it your knowledge. Those are a lot of jewels that you gave us, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So my name is Coviello
Thank
Salinas.
you. Thank you all for being here. Of course, absolutely.
My name is Coviello Salinas, and I'm a biochemical engineer and also a CEO of my own company.
Nice. Say that again. Say it again.
I'm a biochemical engineer and the CEO of my wine company. And I
Ooh,
just
So you use your biochemical knowledge to create wine?
I created the first naturally blue wine in the world, sir.
Oh, nice.
Created the first naturally blue wine in the world. And I have a gift for you as well, you and Kevin, so I have it right here for me. But I want to ask this question to you, because I'm getting in the industry now, I'm getting in a lot of different rooms with a lot of people that do not look like me, right? I've always been in that field where I was in 0.5, right? When you started out, right, and where you're at now, how did you position your brand not only to let yourself know that, I'm still doing it for the culture and for my people, but how did you also allow yourself to understand that, okay, I have to be bigger than that at this point in time? Because since you are the 1%, how did you transition your role from thinking that every day, like, okay, I want to touch my people, I want people to know I'm not leaving them. Like, how did you get to that
Ooh,
point
the
of
guy right there?
Yeah.
Oh.
There's mad books out there.
Saying that, how did I basically
I just seen that.
get to the point where I didn't feel like my people thought I've abandoned them?
Correct.
Yeah.
In what sense? Are you talking about as a business?
You
Are
were-
talking
you were
about,
recording the whole
like,
time?
How are you?
Sure.
From him
So,
to the guy.
currently,
Oh,
the
okay.
wine
When they ask
industry
the question,
is not
okay,
many
like, you got it down.
Black people in the wine industry, right?
Oh.
But since I created something that is in the wine industry, and I know that I'm gonna have to be the
We try to
forefront
get you.
of
You
it,
should have built this. Like,
how do I
right out
position
there. So,
myself to the
we
point
wish you could.
of understanding
Who
that, all right,
cares?
I'm
You
gonna
would
have
be
to
the same
be in these
person if you was
different
on that line.
arenas and rooms
right?
with people that do not look like me, and how do I
You
bring
can't see it like that.
people up with me at the
You
same
can't say it
time
like that if it was
without
you.
What you
Think
mean?
about it.
desecrating my
If it
brand?
was to you who he is? That's a good
Sure, I
question.
understand that one.
I mean, if I had that question, I would have went up there, but I don't have a question to ask him now.
Why not?
You saying when
I
you're
don't.
in those rooms and you walk in with more
What question would you
minorities,
ask?
I don't know. That's
If I gave you one, would you go?
desecrated your brand, they found value in you?
Maybe.
Or are
If
you
I was,
saying,
maybe I'm shy.
Give you a
because
question.
I'm not bringing that many people of color with me at the
Give you a
moment,
question.
that I'm desecrating my brand with my people.
That's correct.
The last one.
How do you go about dealing with people that you was friends with that are unsuccessful? Now that you're so successful, how do you deal with people that hated on you on this path?
Bringing your people up is being
How do you
a
deal
role
with
model
people
all
that
can look at
made you
and
feel
say,
bad about
I
yourself
can work
now
with
that
you,
you're
and I don't care
beyond
what color
them?
you are. You're a man.
That should be a
You're
question.
I think yeah, that should be your question, son.
I've got a lot of backlash
You.
on my various different ways.
Too late.
I've got
You
a lot
had
of
two more
support.
questions I heard.
Wait, I
When
think
people
I
started to go down,
think actually you. I think
everybody
what you
told
actually said. I
those are the same
think
people who never
actually.
voted yet, right? I have
Yeah, I think actually I think you answered the
the
question already.
highlighted in any African American magazine for the last 20 years. Think about that. And I'm the only African American on television that has nothing to do with sports or music. Right? I'm not out there talking about bitches and hoes and stuff like that, but
Right.
it is what it is, right? I'm even talked to by Black Enterprise, right? So you got to do the best. By the way, when my father left at 10 years old, and I never would see or speak to him ever again, the man that came in my life, actually, that my mother ended up becoming boyfriend and girlfriend with, that she was with for about 3-4 years, happens to be of the Jewish faith. And he told me something very important. He told me, always be pro-black, but never anti anything else. And that, and his brother was the lead attorney over here for the freedom of Nelson Mandela. So I always realized that I just got to do the best for my people, of course, but I have to do the best for myself because I'm not doing well for them. I can't bring other people up the ladder. Now, unfortunately, where Bill Cosby is now in his life, it's horrible. But one of the most powerful things he ever did was...
He wanted you to be about them.
Theo was never on crack.
Can I get my voice up?
You know, nobody in the family had a problem. It was oh my God, what are you talking about? A black doctor and a black lawyer married together in Brooklyn, and they're having the same fun time like the Brady Bunch? And that was one of the most powerful things.
You mean Cosby's?
To show people that. When people see me on Shark Tank, here's what my responsibility is. I don't use slang and say bitches and nigga and stuff like that in public because I want people, and generally in private, I want people to see me in a very specific way because I want the next Steve Jobs to be home in his pajamas or Oprah Winfrey eating cereal watching Shark Tank. But I also get criticized because I happen to marry a woman who's white. And it's crazy that I got criticized for it because if people would know that my stepfather was white, people would know that my first wife was Dominican, and I love women of all colors, but she found a way to, and my mother who fought in the Civil Rights Act movement loves her probably more than she loves me. Then why do I care about what other people think? I'm going to bring people to the ladder that I feel deserve the opportunity to be brought up the ladder.
First off, I just want to thank you for being here and dropping all this knowledge and wisdom amongst us. My name is Deshaun Garden. I'm 21 years old. I'm a digital marketer and I come from the Bronx, raised in the Bronx.
Okay, it's still early though. It's
My
only 9
question
o'clock.
for you is I'm trying to start my own digital marketing agency, and seeing as I'm so young, my question is for you: what advice would you tell your 21-year-old self when first starting out in business?
So the first thing I'll share with everybody, please try to understand financial intelligence, the way that money works. Right, I've shared this with people. I think that you should go to school if you want a very specific, career, or if you want to go and learn business and accounting. That's the fundamentals. But number one, the school system is not set up to teach any of us, black, white, or yellow, any of us financial intelligence. Because they taught us financial intelligence when we were 8 or 10 or 9 or 12 years old. We're not going to go take a $300,000 loan for an education we're not sure we want at 18 years old, right?
But I can
So
just
first
take
of
it
all,
from
understand
top of
financial
my,
intelligence.
on my
Then if you're a digital
computer. I
marketer,
have the
go
money
to
is like
people that give them
$200
offers they can't refuse.
Damn.
People
do
that you
Photoshop.
see are in power
To buy a
or
Photoshop
are,
on your
but they're
computer
lacking.
is
They're
200.
40 to 50 to 60
Yeah, 'cause
years
you know,
old. They
Photoshop,
run
you can
companies. They
create
have
your
financing and they have
whole,
funding and they have
yeah,
materials and or goods and say, I see
So
you
I'm
sitting
gonna
on a lot of
wait until I
inventory.
get the money
I
and
can help
then
you
I'm
with
gonna
that.
pay for it.
You don't even gotta pay. You don't want to pay. I want a vehicle
I'm
when
not
I'm
that
moving.
loud.
You heard me.
Now you're using other people's merchandise,
Yeah,
right?
them over there
To
looking at
use
me.
to go
Then
out
you
and put
mellow
it out
out.
there, right? They're just gonna sit
Shut
on it. So
up.
find opportune times where you can collaborate and you can use your skills. Now, we all have to have real report cards. Maybe you suck as a digital marketer. And maybe you won't move any goods, but at least you didn't buy that inventory. It was your sweat and your, and your energy and your hard work that you put in that you may have lost, but you'll come back better next time. But in the book, Billie Jean Shaw is exactly what you are. He started off with zero, and then he started handling accounts like Orange Theory and a lot of these people. So in the book, Billie Jean will probably be talking like, it'll be like talking dirty to you.
All right. Thank you. We have time for one more.
No.
Hi.
Hi.
I listened to you on the HBTT, How I Built This, and I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that podcast.
Thank you.
My first
McCall.
question is, when
Sam
naming your
McCall.
brand,
No, I left it when you was. I went to the bathroom.
are you positioning yourself, if you give it a cultural name or based on race, is that positioning you putting you in a better position, or is it hurting your brand? Like
It all depends
cornering
on what your brand is, right? It depends on how narrow and deep it could be, But again, you can always do the tagline for being what it is. I only put For Us By Us on 80 shirts in '89. I never put it on anything else, and so you'll never see it on anything else. But people spread the word about it. So it all depends, It just depends on what your brand is. I tend to like 4-letter to 6-letter words that are brands, and I tend to like brands that it can't get confused what it is, and you won't be having problems globally with trademarks. So there wasn't a Google to use, like Google or Facebook. I tend not to do brands that the name is very generic, like Great Taste Cookies. You know what I mean? Because then you're gonna have litigation challenges. So first of all, come up with a very cool name, Foursquare, Uber, words that aren't really existing. And then your tagline can always change. For Us By Us in Korea is for skateboarders. That's just who gravitated towards it. There's a big movement, a gay movement now that a lot of times I see ads out as For Us By Us, right? That's a certain other community, right? For Us By Us, when I was starting, it was For Us By Us. People love hip hop or hip hop, right? A lot of times your customer will interpret your brand in a whole different way. And who are we not to love our customer? Right? That's the only reason we're ever in business, to love our customer. So again, I think the actual 4, 6, or whatever the letters of the name should be something very powerful or very random that nobody knows what it is, and your tagline underneath your Nike can always say "Just Do It," right? So that's what it should be.
I don't mean to take up your time, but the last thing is I've often hear that business isn't for everyone, but as I'm learning, I'm thinking it's a training that just about any of us could learn, or do you believe it's for a certain group?
No, and that's a great question. You absolutely should learn how to think like an entrepreneur. The reason that I am able to be here today or whatever is because I have entrepreneurial thinking people in my company. And I'm Batman, I say it all the time, I'm Batman, they're Robin, and half the time, they're Batman, I'm Robin. There was no need for me to hire them to tell them everything they need to do. I like to hire smarter people than me. And over 80% of the people that started in my company started as interns. Because they would show up before the people who were getting paid, and they would go home after the ones that were getting paid. And sometimes they left on their internship, and we would call them up a year later or 2 years later because they built, they built influence with us. And we'd say, hey, what are you doing? Come work for us. So absolutely, you need to be entrepreneurial thinking at your company.
Let's give a round of applause for Deymond. Thank you all for coming. The bar is still
You acting
open.
crazy for people.
What you mean?
Oh no, like do that for me too.
We'll be out there and we have special distribution.
Act like you care for
I
me,
appreciate
like
you all.
the way
Thank
you
you.
care about
Show the
random people.
hashtag that I
Wow, you sure it's right down street? You sure it's right down street? Come on, yo. Wow, God, I would call and you sure it's right down street?
No.